So everybody, I'm here with Joseph Balistreri. He's an unbelievable, inspiring inventor. We're going to hear about his story today, some of his obstacles, and the amazing product that he's brought to market. And he has a lot of the kinds of problems a lot of inventors would hope to have, and he'll talk about that. And what I'm referring to is demand that is outpacing his ability to supply the market. So that's a wonderful position to be in. But before well, let's do this. Let's our moderator Manicia, if you can play a video, we'll mute the audio, and you guys can watch along, and that'll kind of show visually the product. And Joseph, you can talk about some of the obstacles. So Manicia, you can start that at any time. Joseph began his career about in 2010 in the pest control industry. So that's how he's very aware of these problems of all kinds of wildlife. But in this case, this video talks about raccoons. So tell us, Joseph, about the problem you've identified.
So with the problem you're seeing, especially with the pools, if for instance, that's really one of the main problems I had in South Florida, why I invented the product. Raccoons like to defecate in pools. And just like you're seeing there, they go in, they use the pools as latrines and hide their droppings to the other predators or other competition of other males or females. So they hide those droppings naturally in ponds or in lakes. But once those areas become overpopulated, pools become more convenient. And unfortunately, in their droppings, they have raccoon roundworm, which is defecated into the droppings, is in the droppings, and it's inhaled or ingested by the raccoon. And it's proven by the CDC that chlorine can't kill it. So I have a very rich demographic in South Florida where I invented the product. And the customers didn't want to see the defecation in the pool, which stained the finish of the Diamond Bright. And long story short, they couldn't swim in the pool. And I needed to find a better way than, a fake alligator head, which is, was everybody's go-to. And I wanted a better way. And I understood the Achilles heel of the animal, so which led me to the direction of how to ultimately stop them from getting to those areas.
So do a lot of, it's interesting because the customers are essentially, they're aware of the droppings in the pool, but you have to educate them that it's not just the staining they might be aware of. And of course, nobody wants droppings of anything in their pool.
Right.
But raccoon roundworm, the fact that it's not killed by chlorine, so there's nothing your typical pool cleaners do to address that. So it
Right.
is a health hazard.
Yeah, it's a fungus and it's encapsulated in mucus. And that's what makes it impenetrable from the chlorine to get to actually the egg. And that once it becomes an egg and incubates in the warm water, it looks for a host. And unfortunately, we're the ones that are playing in it.
So, and was this, I would like to kind of take you back in time to when the idea first came to mind. Like, were you asked to, you mentioned an alligator head, like, is that like a deterrent? Kind of like some places will use an owl to get rid of pigeons.
Right.
Like is that what it is? It's just an artificial alligator head that floats in the pool?
Right. It's a visual deterrent. And what most consumers and most homeowners don't realize is raccoons have no depth perception. They can't see up close. So that's why they picked up the hypersensitivity in their hands. And with that being hypersensitive, they can go into those waters and pick up anything and know if it's edible before they can actually smell or taste it. So with knowing that they can't see up close, if you can't see a visual deterrent, it's never going to become a benefit to whoever puts it out. With my product, it's geared to make them touch it. When they go to those certain areas, they touch it, they don't like it, and I've proven it not to come back. I videoed the product working for 2 years before I was able to, raise the funding for my patents and whatnot.
So, so the visual, it's kind of strange. A visual deterrent obviously doesn't work if the animals can't see the deterrent. So that's
right.
Really what, so the alligator head, it might it might work with some consumers. They'll purchase it because it sounds like it works.
Right.
Obviously, like pigeons can see. So when you see an artificial owl, which is a predator for pigeons, it works on pigeons, but that's because visually they can see. But raccoons are very
Right.
tactile. And this goes to show that a lot of times with with inventions, uh, the best products come from those in the industry who understand the obstacles that are actually faced. It's because of your experience in the pest control industry that you actually became aware of these things, and that
Right.
helps you in developing a better product that others haven't considered. That's very common in, for example, products for people that are handicapped. Oftentimes, it's not the able-bodied inventors that are identifying the problem. It's somebody who's blind, who realizes, who faces an actual need for something, and then they go forward and they address
Right.
that need. We have I've seen that over and over again in my practice as well. So this is it's interesting. And anytime I see an inventor that's inventing within their industry, a problem faced by their industry, it's always the likelihood is a lot higher that they have identified something that others have missed. So that's clearly been
Yeah.
with what you have. Um, is there competition for, other than the visual deterrent? Are there competing products that are focusing on the tactile aspect to deter raccoons?
I mean, if there is, I mean, I really don't research it, but there is, some other products that try to compete or be like mine, but it's, my product has its, obviously its patents in place, protected for the last 4 years. But again, there's so many different variables that could and couldn't work. If you had something that was electronic, what's that going to do to whoever wants to use the pool? Is it going to be a benefit for that? And it's just, you can always change something and make it better, but again, it takes research and years of development. And I don't, I know my product works. Before I even went into it, I filmed it. I had to film it. And that was some of the videos you saw were some of my test properties through South Florida, where where I was testing it. It was all through Boca Raton, Boynton Beach, Pompano. I had different areas where I knew where pockets of raccoons lived, different strip malls. So that gave me also a good advantage to be able to, not use a customer support, actually have a daytime footage of a raccoon coming out and actually using my product, which is, was a huge benefit for me.
Wow. So that there's this one video that shows, I think it's some kind of food item or bait and surrounded by your product, and you see 2 or 3 raccoons walk up to it and they turn around and leave. So
Right.
those are not domesticated, trained raccoons. They weren't actors and actresses.
No.
Those are wild raccoons, and you caught them on film being deterred specifically by your product.
Right.
So
Yeah.
oh, go ahead.
That's one thing I wanted to make sure, a lot of inventors, they have an idea that's good to them, but it's really is overall aspect of it. If you're going to put something, I was, 6 years younger then, but I had to make sure if I was going to move forward with this process, I got to make sure it works, and get the benefit to the consumer. I didn't, if you want to call me and ask me if it works, I'm just going to tell you, just go to my YouTube channel so you can answer the question yourself. That's what I want to do different as an inventor as well, is I wanted to prove its worthiness and the merit of it before going and saying it works. Just like every other product on market, anybody can talk's cheap, but it comes down to the concrete proven and evidence that a product works, which I don't have a product on the market that does that. And that's what I've done different is, I might have competing products, but I don't have a sticker or just an image of the actual problem. I got the video going along with the solution to the problem.
Yeah, so the actual evidence, because I mean, any company can produce, like fancy ads and
All right.
graphics and advertising, but that you have is basically raw footage that's, that's showing the product working, and then
Right.
testimonials from customers that have used it. And and your own experience in the pest control industry, because that's has been invaluable. Uh, the Tell me a little bit about the prototype process. You mentioned the simplicity of your product, and no electronic parts. You don't need electricity, no batteries, no power source. So this makes it a lot more very convenient, right? And
Right.
durable. It's not as if just when you need it, the batteries are down or the power is not working or something short circuits. And there's no risk of, especially because of the proximity to a swimming pool and people in the water, there's a lot more involvement if you have any kind of electronic product, right? There's
Sure. Yeah.
a lot of risks that you have none of those.
Right. No, and that when you talk about everything you just named, I would have needed an EPA approval for that, which makes it very expensive because then you're going into, the EPA has put a lot of new regulations in the last, 2 years to regulate falsely claims products. Their claims are false to what they do. So through making the idea of the product, I had to understand I don't want to go through that route, like make a electronic device to be able to, spend more money in this whole new registration over the EPA, and I've completely went around that because my product's just plastic,
Hmm.
which has been
So
good.
now it's funny when we talk about obstacles, like right at the beginning, I spoke about, a current obstacle you're facing is that you have like fluctuating demand, and sometimes it's a good problem to have, but the difficulty in just producing enough product to satisfy that demand. But tell us about some of the early obstacles you had. One of the questions that were pre-submitted asks about obtaining funding for the launch.
Yeah, so with me, I had a pest control company
Mhm.
it was already in business for 6 years, and I serviced all South Florida. So through that, I ended up getting, a lot of, I was very blessed to be able to get some big jobs that provided the funding, and I self-funded it. I paid for my patents, my manufacturing, my tooling costs. I did everything through just having, my first income really support my dream. And that's why it took me 2 years. I understood I had to wait to get to where I had to be and make whatever everything in life is worth waiting for. And you have to weigh your risk for reward. And, being at a younger age and, just starting a family, I really had to take, precise steps. So unfortunately that took time. But it allowed me to not go and need investors. I own 100% of my company. But then you come into the point where everything's done, and that's where that's really where it gets harder.
Okay. Was there any ideas or concepts that you think particularly helped bring your product to the marketplace?
Um, well, my patent research that I did had conflicting products. Their patent literally expired the month after I actually thought of my idea. So kind of took the wind out of my sails because I'm like, oh, can I patent it? Can I really go forward with this idea that I've proven to work in a prototype? And I made some changes to it, and I learned what I could and couldn't do with my particular patent, and I moved forward with it. And getting to that, understanding what I'm protecting, within my product. So that's really what it came down to with that.
So one of the things so obviously, first being patent pending, and now it's actually patented. So nobody can buy your product anywhere else. You have exclusive rights to it. And that helps with in your marketing and with consumers, because it's good to see that when they see a product is patented, that tells them you have proprietary rights and there's a unique aspect to it. But another thing that really helped get the word out and help you in marketing was your appearance on Shark Tank.
Right.
So tell us a little bit about that and the publicity and how you were able to harness that to grow your business.
Well, my episode of Shark Tank was shown the second week of shut lockdown. of the coronavirus. It was in March 27th, 2020 was my air date. And so obviously everybody was home. And I think it was one of the top three ever viewed episodes in the 11 years, or it's been 12 now, that they've been on. But it was tough. I only had limited inventory because I was already making moves prior to me going on air.
Right.
Because you're never told you're going to be shown on TV until 3 weeks prior to your air date. So you can't really prepare for it. So I was, just already doing business as usual, having an order come, and my manufacturer shut down in January, February. And now I needed product. They opened in March when we shut down, and it took me almost till July to fulfill the orders from the March air date. And then June came again, and they re-aired it. So I was back into the same, problem. A lot of demand, not a lot of product. So it was very hard to harness all that exposure and bring it to, really to capitalize on it, because the variables weren't there for me. I didn't have a United States manufacturer yet. It's very soon it's going to be here and manufactured in the United States, my product.
Mhm.
But to get it there to here, it was just time consuming, and obviously trying to keep up with my manufacturer's demand with the other products they make. So now I'm in this huge rush. I went on TV in front of 16 million people. My sales exploded, and then it continued and continued, and it still continues. That my original air date's still paying till this day. I still get calls weekly. Oh, I saw you on Shark Tank last year, and I still remember your product. Now I need it. I didn't need it then, but it's really still paying dividends to me. But they
Right.
still re-air it nonstop, 3 or 4 times a year. So you never know when that happens. You just wake up to, you know, a lot more sales than you usually would have.
And this is you say it was the third most watched episode. Um, so the timing, sometimes things that look like lemons, you can make lemonade out of it. I mean, obviously nobody
Yeah,
wants to launch a new product 2 weeks into the or have their show air 2 weeks into the pandemic, but it also helped quite a bit with viewership uh, as well. And who knows, perhaps people are more aware of, when you're at home, you're a lot more aware of things like poop in your pool. Otherwise, what might happen if you have a pool cleaner, which is common in South Florida,
right,
they'll come by, they'll clean the visible signs, and then but homeowners don't realize the parasites and the ringworm and those things are not cleaned off, so they're still in the water.
right,
Danger's still there, the health risk is still there. But now
right.
with everybody at home, I'm sure it's helped with awareness, because not just the pool guy doesn't go and clean up the mess and the homeowners don't see it. Now you're there in the pool the next morning.
Right. No, that's you're definitely right. There's more education to it, because now I'm like a lot of my calls that I get are customers that are educated, and they know, oh, the CDC says for me to drain my pool. Do I really need to take those steps? And I'm like, well, I didn't write those guidelines. Unfortunately, those are the people who did, and I can't answer that question. It's a risk. I've met probably 10 people or less that actually ingested the roundworm, and it was in their skin. A couple people in their scalp, because the water went through the ear and the egg was in there in it, and it went through that part. But you just don't know.
Yeah. I mean, so the safest approach is what your product does, is just prevents, instead of having to focus on the cleanup and
Right.
how to kill the roundworm. It's like, let's just prevent it from getting in the water at all.
Yeah, because once they start, they don't stop. Raccoons are a creature of habit. So to break that routine, they'll go and like a lot of communities I worked in, Boca Raton, they're all country clubs. So there's 60 pools in a row, and then in a sub community, in a community, and they would hit every probably 20 of those pools, and within a week's period, because that was their routine.
Right.
Once I figured that out through the videos, eventually they would just use the neighbor's pool because the one pool is protected, and I broke up that routine of that animal. But again, you never know what's behind that. There's always a litter, and there's constant litters all through the year, especially in South Florida.
So what I'd like to turn to now is go back to the patents for a second, and the initial research, you found some competing products, but what led you to pursue the patent? Were you already aware of the benefits of patenting, or that's something you researched and became more concerned about?
Yeah, I mean, I knew there wasn't really anything in the market to my product because, I was in it for long enough. I understood what was available to me regularly. And um, to move forward with something, if I wanted to protect it, obviously I had my heart into it. So I really wanted to protect it. If it was like my child, I was that strong about it. I was obsessed with it. It was everything. It consumed me for a very long time because I knew it worked. So, you keep it quiet and, in reality, patents are only enforceable, if you have enough funds to protect it. And, I understood that as well, but they didn't have something in the front to it. What would have been birth? It would have been what if. So I did it. If it was well money spent or wasn't, where would that be now? Would I be spending that money on lawyer fees, trying to say I want to fight for it because I thought of it first and somebody stole it because I didn't protect it? Or do I have the patent and have a service just like yours and protect my patent? And I'm spending money wisely to get it out, get it back because they infringed on the patent. So I weighed it out. What am I going to be paying now compared to the future? And it was a lot cheaper to patent it and to protect it now than have to worry about it in the future and just keep moving forward with the proper steps of bringing a product to market. And
Right.
So I educated myself a little bit of really how to make sure, I did things right because, I networked with other inventors. I met the inventor of the X hose, the hose that slinkies up and after you use it,
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
steam all over the place. He invented that product. He pitched that to Home Depot. Within that pitch meeting, that product was stolen and being produced overseas. And within months, that product was over here under 5 different names. And this gentleman told me, he goes, I asked him, how's your life? How is it great? Is it, you got this cool idea? And he goes, I hate it. I'm in litigation every single day of my life, fighting different companies in different states because they did me wrong. And I'm like, wow. So you'll get paid. He goes, yeah, I'll be getting paid, but these people have made money on my idea. Well, I should be making this more money than I should because now my pie's cut with 10 huge companies selling it. So, I reached,
You
I
didn't.
just had, it was one of those things.
Yeah. So that was an expensive lesson learned of not patenting. It was the patent process. You said in your case, because the product was so unique, it really went through fairly quickly.
Yeah. I had my patent reviews. I had two, a one, and within that second review, I was approved. It was pending for about 6 months, and then, well, probably 3 months after that, I was fully patented.
Okay. Yeah,
Yep.
that's fairly quick. Any obstacles in that you want to talk about, like in prototyping? Uh, any obstacles or generating? Doesn't sound like generating sales has been the obstacle because
Well, no, that's what I personally feel is inventing it, tooling and manufacturing is the easy part. Selling it is the hardest part.
right.
What I did in the beginning before I patented my product, I made the selling part easier because I knew that was going to be hard. You can't just put a product, say, hey, I'm, blah blah blah, and here's my product. You got to.
That's
I had to be.
the research and the documenting and the videos and like proving it worked. You put the time in ahead of time. Uh,
Yeah, well, because what I had to go against is the service industry and then other competing products like sprays and essential oils and whatnot that's marketed. The thing about my product is it's when you need it, you have the problem of a raccoon, you need the product. You're not buying my product just to say I want it. And
right.
you have to be there for that. I gotta be right in front of your face, in front of all the other, paid advertisements of pest control companies, wildlife companies. So now I got to go through all that. And that was an obstacle. Patenting was the easiest part. The hardest part about that was just waiting, constantly waiting. And then my biggest obstacle was probably my partnership that I had with two individuals in South Florida who ultimately left me high and dry. And, that was really what was the biggest obstacle was dealing with a partnership with somebody that did me wrong, which ended up working out for me because 8 months after the partnership dissolved, the Shark Tank's producers called me and put me on the spot interview, and obviously I did okay to keep moving on.
Yeah.
So that was a blessing in disguise. So that was I look at all those obstacles. There were all bumps in the roads, but I networked, I educated myself how it works. I tried to get an understanding what I needed to do to keep calm because everybody wants to become a millionaire. Everybody wants to go on Shark Tank, but it doesn't happen every single day. You know, it happens, but you got to take certain steps so you don't actually, to collapse yourself in case something goes wrong. That's why I did. Made steps in the right way to make sure everything was done right.
And that started with really early with the documenting. So a lot of inventors, I think, sometimes jump ahead to the solution, but the first thing you did is focus on the problem itself and documenting the problem. So some of the video that we had played at the beginning, so that initial raccoon that's in the pool, that's not stock, is that stock footage or is that your?
Yeah, that was stock footage, but
Okay.
some of the videos online that are, because these animals are nocturnal.
Correct.
But actually, no, I'm sorry. The one in the pool, that was stock footage, but the one in the pavement where the
Right.
product is scattered, there's actually Cheetos hanging from a fishing line in the square.
That's
I
the
wanted
thing that I refer to, that whatever was attracting
Yep.
them.
So those raccoons were, urbanized, what I call. A lot of people say that raccoons have rabies when they see them during the daylight. It's not. We've urbanized them. They're at the point of where they can live with us. Every movement we're making, they're going to be right behind us, trying to be an opportunistic, situation. If it's a food in a dumpster or if somebody feeding cats, they don't care. They'll go out during the day and go eat that cat food. So, that was one of the things with it. And trying to think what else. We'll move on with that one.
Okay. Well, I think it's not a surprise. I think that that you came to the attention of the producers of Shark Tank because you're very passionate about this idea, and this isn't uh, like a fad type item that you just happen to see and think there's a need for. This is from years of running a pest control company, seeing the same problem over and over again, and seeing nobody addressing it.
All right.
We only have a minute left. I'd like to give you this minute to think of what advice do you have for our viewers here today. A lot of them have ideas. They're at different stages. They're facing obstacles themselves. Any advice for them to help them finally launch and get to where you are?
Some of the biggest things I would say is, be patient, have patience, get through the steps, educate yourself to the point where you understand what happens as you're patenting, why, when it's in the patent review, what is it doing? And then being proactive, what's the next step? If you have a good team like doing all the work with your clients, they need to know, there's other things to move forward. Be ready for it. If you got a big tooling cost of your mold and it's injected molded, you're going to have the $15,000 to $20,000 to get it made. I fortunately worked with a prototyping company who led me in the right way, and I had tooling costs really done, barely cheap. My cheapest quote in the United States was 40,000. I got it done for 6. So, having that service as well, a prototyping company to give you a good company, so you don't have to go knocking on doors in China saying, "Hey, who can make it?" and haven't worried about it getting stolen. Have that advantage as well. Have that cost in mind, and really, be ready for every next step. Patenting and tooling and everything, that beginning part is the easiest. It's selling it is the hardest because now you have to get on the internet and brick and mortar, have everything set for you and understand it, and just network with different groups so you can, meet people like me that have been through it. I mean, I had one product I developed and I did it first one. I went to Shark Tank with it. That's my pinnacle. It's every inventor's pinnacle is get to Shark Tank,
Right.
but everybody can do it. It's just doing things the right way. And anybody can really contact me. I have, can answer any questions. I like to network with other inventors to give them my steps, because my steps I went through, I had some rough roads in between it, but it also led me to the smoothest path forward for my next product that I invent. And I know what to do. I can get it patented and tooled and manufactured cheaper than most anybody can really say, because I've already been there. And I did those steps the right.
You've gotten the people already lined up. Let me give us your website, and then Manicia, you can type it into the chat for anybody that wants to, that's facing this problem. And we have a Facebook group for inventors, and Manicia will post that as well. So any questions that anyone has, we'll try to get them to you. And I do a summit once a year featuring successful inventors. So hopefully, as we get dates finalized, we'd love to have you back. It's
Thank you.
Such an inspiration to have you here, to see someone with that kind of passion for their product, take it all the way from when it was nothing but a thought in your mind,
Right.
prototyping, and now being in the position where you can't make enough to to meet the demand. So that's a
right.
good
It's tough
to be in. Oh, terrific, Joseph. Nice speaking with you.
I appreciate you. Thanks for having me.